The night the trouble began, the wind carried a strange smell through camp. Not smoke, not rot, but something faintly metallic and sour. I woke to the sound of Mason unzipping the tent, his flashlight beam cutting through the cold mist. "Something's been into the food," he whispered. I didn't need to ask what he meant. The rustle of plastic, the soft crunch of something being dragged, said it all. We stumbled from our tents barefoot in the dewy grass, and there it was. One of our waterproof barrels overturned, the lid cracked clean through. Inside, the oatmeal was soaked, rice half gone, and most of the jerky scattered into the dirt. An animal raid, likely raccoons or foxes, maybe something bigger. It didn't matter. Nearly half our non-perishables were ruined. By dawn, we were sitting around the cold fire ring, every face hollowed by disbelief. We'd planned for 12 days on the ridge, a remote stretch of backcountry miles from the nearest road. And now, 5 days in, our supplies were down to a week at best. No one said what we all thought. There was no easy way out. The nearest ranger station was 3 days' hike, and we didn't have the calories for the round trip. We'd have to stretch what remained. Tight, measured, no waste. Mason, always the pragmatist, pulled out his notebook. "We ration quarter portions from here on." That meant a fist-sized scoop of rice and beans between the four of us each meal. Rachel bit her lip and nodded, while Ian kicked at the dirt, muttering that we should have hung the barrel higher. He wasn't wrong. None of us wanted to argue, though, not yet. Hunger hadn't begun its work on us. That morning, we rechecked everything. The flour was clumped and damp but usable. The peanut butter jar sealed tight, the pasta untouched. We scraped what we could off the ground, brushing off soil, shoving it into a spare bag. I remember the silence. Not angry, not panicked, just grim, methodical. When we finally built a fire, we ate the last of our good food, warm rice, beans and slivers of dried sausage, knowing tomorrow's meal would be less. As the light faded behind the pines, Rachel stared at the darkening sky. "We'll manage," she said. Her voice trembled. "We always do." But that night, lying in my sleeping bag, I could hear Mason's stomach growl like an echo of the storm we all knew was coming. The next morning brought a heavy fog that clung to the spruce needles and made every sound feel close and damp. Mason divided the breakfast, 1 small scoop of oats each, boiled thin as broth. It smelled faintly of smoke and metal, and though it warmed my hands, it barely touched the hunger gnawing inside. Ian stared at his tin cup like it had betrayed him, then poured half of it back into the pot. "Save it," he said. No one argued. By mid-morning, we decided to search for more food. We split up, pairing off. Mason and Rachel followed the creek east, while Ian and I took the ridge, looking for signs of berries or mushrooms. The forest there was thick, old-growth spruce and hemlock, carpeted in moss and ferns. Everything was green and wet, but not much edible. We found a few clusters of red berries that Ian insisted were safe. He'd read a field guide once, but when we crushed one between our fingers, the bitter smell said otherwise. We left them for the birds. Down by the river, we saw trout darting through clear pools, silver flashes in the shadowed water. "If we can rig a line," I said, "we might eat tonight." We spent an hour pulling apart paracord strands, fashioning hooks from safety pins, baiting them with slivers of jerky. It wasn't elegant, but it was something. We dropped the lines in a calm bend and waited. When we returned to camp that evening, Mason and Rachel had news, bad and good. The bad: the other barrel, the one we thought untouched, had a crack in the seal. Inside, moisture had crept in. The powdered soup mix was paste. The good: they'd found cattails in a marshy patch upstream. "The roots are starchy," Mason said. "Edible if you boil them long enough." So that night's dinner was cattail roots and a few handfuls of damp flour cooked into a sticky mess. It tasted like earth and smoke, but it filled the hollow for a while. As darkness fell, the first fish tugged the line we'd set earlier. A small trout, no longer than my hand, but it looked like gold in the firelight. We split it 4 ways. I swear, I've never tasted anything so sweet. We sat long after, watching the coals dim. Hunger had already changed us. Every glance lingered a second too long on someone's share. Every rustle outside the tents made us clutch what food we had left. Mason kept the ration log in his pocket as if guarding treasure. None of us said it aloud, but the wilderness didn't feel like wilderness anymore. It felt alive, watching, waiting to see who would last longest. By the fourth night after the raid, our bodies had adjusted in the cruel way hunger forces them to. Slower movements, quieter thoughts. Every action measured like currency. Even laughter cost too much. Rachel's cheeks had hollowed, her freckles standing out like constellations. Ian's usual bravado was gone, replaced by a dull stare that followed the pot as it hung over the fire. We'd caught only 2 small fish that day, both finger length, and boiled them into a thin stew that tasted mostly of smoke and desperation. Mason portioned it with the precision of a surgeon, scraping the ladle until the last slick of oil was gone. When the eating was done, I walked down to the creek to rinse the pot. The moon hung above the ridge like a tarnished coin, its reflection breaking apart in the current. I squatted in the freezing water, staring at the shimmer. For a moment I thought I saw movement, 2 amber eyes in the brush across the stream, a flash of fur, gone in an instant. My heart jumped, though I couldn't tell if it was fear or hope. Game meant meat. Meat meant survival. Back at camp, Mason was whittling a branch into something that might have been a trap trigger. "We'll set snares tomorrow," he said without looking up. "Rabbit, squirrel, whatever we can get." Ian grunted, wrapped deeper in his blanket. Rachel murmured a prayer under her breath. Not for deliverance, but for food. The next day, we scavenged deeper into the valley. Hunger sharpened our senses. We noticed everything. The flick of a bird's wing, the imprint of tiny claws in the mud, the faint musk of animals in the wind. We found tracks near a stand of alders, too small for deer, too big for rabbit. Maybe a fox, Mason guessed. Or raccoon. Either way, we set the snares there, careful and quiet, as if the forest could hear our plans. When dusk came, clouds rolled in heavy and low. Rain drizzled through the trees, turning the campfire to sputtering steam. We huddled close, teeth chattering, sharing the single dry blanket Rachel had kept sealed in her pack. The smell of wet earth filled everything. Mason muttered numbers under his breath. Rations, days left, miles to the ranger station. Ian just stared into the rain, jaw tight, saying nothing. That night, thunder rolled across the mountains. The forest felt vast and hollow. Between the crashes, I could hear my stomach echoing like a second storm, smaller but no less relentless. I wondered, as I drifted in and out of half sleep, if the woods could feel our hunger, if somewhere out there the animals were listening, waiting for the humans to fade. At first light, Mason shook me awake with a whisper. "We caught something." His voice was calm, but his eyes were wild, half relief, half disbelief. We ran down to where the snares were set, boots splashing through wet moss and ferns still heavy from the night's rain. There, tangled in one of the wire loops, was a snowshoe hare, small, white, and trembling. For a moment, none of us moved. It looked at us with dark, glassy eyes, and I swear I felt it see everything. Our hunger, our desperation, our guilt. Mason was the one who finally did it. Quick and clean, a snap of the wrist. Rachel turned away, biting her sleeve. Ian said nothing, just stood staring at the small body as Mason skinned it by the creek. It was ugly work, but the smell that rose when the meat hit the fire was something holy. We ate in silence, every bite a prayer we didn't know how to say. It wasn't enough to fill us, not really, but it restored something. Hope, maybe. Afterward, we grew sharper, colder. The talk around camp changed from rationing to hunting, from waiting to surviving. Ian fashioned crude spears from trekking poles. Rachel foraged for roots and greens, learning to tell safe from poisonous by trial and error. I built traps, more each day, like a man possessed. Hunger turns patience into obsession. But food wasn't our only enemy. By the 7th day, tension boiled. Under every word. Ian accused Mason of hiding extra oats. Mason swore he hadn't, but I'd seen him tuck something into his coat earlier. Maybe a handful of flour, maybe nothing. Rachel cried, asking us to stop, her voice hoarse from days of whispering in the wind. That night, none of us slept. I heard Ian muttering in his tent, the rasp of his knife on stone. The next morning, I found the ration notebook gone. Mason's tent was empty, his pack missing. We followed his tracks a short distance before they vanished in the rain-soft ground near the river. "He's gone to find help," Rachel insisted, but her voice shook. None of us believed it. We waited 3 days. The rain didn't stop. The snares stayed empty. I could feel the forest closing in on us, the silence of it, the patience. Hunger became a rhythm, a second heartbeat. We stopped talking about food because words made it worse. Even the fire felt smaller, its light a reminder of everything slipping away. By the time the third night came, I wasn't sure if I feared the wilderness anymore, or what it was slowly making of us. On the 10th day, I woke to stillness so complete it felt unnatural. No rain, no wind, just the faint creak of wet branches settling above the tents. Rachel was already sitting by the cold ashes, knees tucked to her chest, eyes hollow. Ian was gone. His sleeping bag lay open, damp and empty. For a long time, neither of us spoke. Then Rachel whispered, "He took the knife." Her voice cracked like a twig. We found no tracks this time, just the dull imprint of his boots leading toward the ridge. I thought about following, but the truth was cruel. I didn't have the strength. Every muscle ached, my thoughts drifted like fog, and even the act of standing made my head spin. We spent the morning huddled by the fire pit, coaxing a flame from damp bark. When it caught, we stared into it like it might speak. Later, I went to check the snares alone. A thin mist drifted through the pines, soft and grey. Each step felt dreamlike. When I reached the first trap, I froze. The wire was twisted, empty, but not untouched. There were signs someone had been there. Fresh cuts in the bark, a torn scrap of Mason's jacket snagged on a branch. For a moment I felt something between grief and rage. He'd been alive, close enough to touch, taking what little we had left. When I returned to camp, Rachel was gone too. Her pack remained, but her boots and coat were missing. I shouted her name until my voice cracked and faded into the trees. The echo that came back sounded like something else entirely, something vast and uncaring. I sat there as night fell, feeding the fire with anything dry enough to burn, listening to the woods breathe around me. That night, I dreamed of food. Thick bread, butter, the smell of bacon fat, and woke with tears in my mouth, tasting only smoke. Hunger had stripped me to bone and thought. I no longer feared death, only the long stretch before it arrived. I spent one more day waiting, rationing the last spoonful of flour into a paste I cooked on a flat rock. It smelled faintly sweet, like memory. Sometime the next morning, as the sun broke through the mist for the first time in days, I began walking. The pack felt weightless, though it carried nothing. I followed the creek, downstream, step after step, until the world narrowed to the sound of water and wind. They found me 2 days later, a search team drawn by smoke. I could barely speak, could only point toward the trees where the others had vanished. Even now, years later, I sometimes wake to that silence. Not the hunger, that passes, but the quiet that comes after, when the forest keeps your secrets and gives nothing back.